Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien on the morning of Monday, July 21st, 2023. Stand by for the rest of the story. Well, this isn't a Paul Harvey story, although it could be, but he never wrote about this, that I know of anyway. But here's the story that you Americans should know. 2 days from now, August 2nd, 1923, 100 years ago, a big event happened which is not even noted in your history today. It's like a footnote. Sometime around the 28th, 29th of July 1923, an event happened that even affects America today. In late June, early July, President Warren G. Harding, Democrat from Ohio, scheduled what you would call today political campaign swing, is what the modern term for it is. It was unheard of it before his time. He could say was the creator of the stump, okay? And he was going to get aspirations to run for re-election in 1924. But President Harding was a strange guy. He was the 20th century's version of 21st century Donald J. Trump. He was a young guy. He was only 57 years old at the time. He was one of the younger presidents elected and still in his 50s. And although the technology wasn't around then that it is today, they did say he had heart issues, okay? That was never confirmed. But we'll see later how this fits in. But in late July of 1923, he was in deep trouble because of his dealings, as in Joseph Biden and Hunter Biden's Ukraine dealings. Well, he had something the same way that the Democrats were trying to squash. Republicans, well, they didn't know what to do with it. The media, of course, wanted to look the other way. Eventually, after his death, it became known as the Teapot Dome Scandal. And it was one of the worst ones you've ever had in your history, Americans. It was so bad that during this time, there was considered to bring charges against the President of the United States. They were trying to indict him and charge him with high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay? Do you understand me, Americans? High crimes and misdemeanors. And he was like Trump. He says, well, if I go on the political campaign, the media won't pick this up because they know better. He was a newspaper guy and a lot of media friends that he had. So he went on a western swing, and sometime in late July, they decided to change his itinerary, and the train got diverted to San Francisco. I left my heart in San Francisco. Remember old Tony Bennett? Well, you left your hearts in San Francisco, Americans. Because Mr. Harding went to this hotel in San Francisco and he checked himself in. And the only people around were the vice president wasn't notified of his issue. That's Calvin Coolidge, by the way. Calvin. Oh, yeah, poor Calvin. Oh, boy. Yeah. His wife and his doctor, which you could call Rasputin. Oh, yeah. His doctor didn't have a license to be doctor, but he was still there. He was a quack. Technically, Rasputin. He acted like a Rasputin in all respects, too. Yeah, the Empress of Russia, Alexandra. Oh, boy, his wife was the same way. Yeah, the presidential wife, that is. Well, anyway, on August 2nd, 1923, President Harding kicked the bucket. Yeah. And today's version says heart attack. There's no evidence of that because of what happened then. President Harding, there was a lot of rumors along the time, and even today, that he was having hanky-panky. Well, that would have been kind of fun, wouldn't it? It would have put John F. Kennedy off the map. Yoo-hoo! But anyway, he passed away on August 2nd, 1923, whether it was hanky or panky or something else or a heart condition, we'll never know. Because as soon as he kicked the bucket, his wife and his doctor, Rasputin, decided to embalm him a couple of hours after he passed away. So when the doctors in Washington got a hold of him, the president died. Oh, and nobody notified old Calvin, who was over in his home state in New England someplace. Was it New Hampshire? I think it was New Hampshire. I forget where Calvin's from. But anyway, him of note from the next year, because next year President Coolidge will be noted because he accepted a visit from George Halas and the Galloping Ghost Red Grange of the Chicago Bears to visit the White House. And they told him, oh, this is Mr. George Halas and the Galloping Ghost Red Grange from the Chicago Bears. And he told them, oh, I'm sorry, gentlemen, I'm not familiar with animal acts these days. He forgot that they represented the upstart National Football League. Well, that's a different story, but just wanted to throw that in. Anyway, with President Harding, by the time the doctors got to him, they could do nothing, okay? And the president's wife and Dr. Rasputin kept this to themselves for another 3 months until finally Congress decided to put Mr. Calvin Coolidge in place as the acting president. Anyway, they could do nothing with Warren G. Harding. And by the way, his body stood in the morgue of his hometown, Marion, in Marion County, Ohio, until they could build a mausoleum to him. That took a while. So he was laying, not in state, but in the morgue. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, the next year, 1924, his wife and his doctor, Rasputin, died under mysterious circumstances. Ooh, that's 3 people, Warren G. Harding and his wife and Rasputin dying under mysterious circumstances. And of course, the media looked the other way. President Calvin Coolidge decided to appoint a special federal agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, in 1924, and put a young upstart named Edgar Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover, Hoover, yes. And they squashed this for the next century. So here we are, the next century here, and here you had a president that almost got indicted. A lot of his people got really thrown in jail from this Tip Pat Don't scandal because it became really bad after his death. And old Calvin had to deal with this all through 1924 to 29 when Herbert Hoover finally won the Republicans' nomination, and, well, everything else is history. Crash time! And stuff like that. But is a crash based on President Harding? Well, we'll never know, will we? But his influence, boy, it lasted almost a decade till President Franklin Delano Roosevelt came into power. And it was squashed permanently by FDR. So there you are, Americans. You have a Republican president with as bad and ominous as Donald J. Trump has today. Yet history only lists him as a footnote, as a minor president. This is your favorite alien, and now you know the rest of the story. Good day.